Witnesses say his final words were that his death amounted to murder by the state and that it would not bring back anyone.
Number 10. Lee Harvey Oswald. This Louisiana man made terrible history on November 22, 1963, when he shot and killed President Kennedy as the presidential motorcade was traveling through Dallas.
Any effort to explain what happened in Dallas must explain Lee Harvey Oswald. And Lee Harvey Oswald is a mystery wrapped up in an enigma, hidden behind a riddle.
Then, 2 days after the assassination, Oswald was scheduled to be escorted from police headquarters to the county jail. This event was broadcast on live television. Unfortunately, millions of viewers witnessed a second killing in real time, as nightclub owner Jack Ruby shot Oswald in the stomach. He was rushed to a nearby hospital, but died less than 2 hours later. In just 2 days, the country witnessed two history-making events that would be discussed, debated, and studied for decades to come.
When Jack Ruby killed Lee Harvey Oswald, there went our ability to question the one man who pulled the trigger.
Number 9. George Apple. Back in January of 1928, a Brooklyn mobster named George Apple was sentenced to die for killing a New York police lieutenant. His sentence was the electric chair at New York's infamous Sing Sing Correctional Facility. As it turns out, Apple was quite the master at gallows humor. As he was being strapped into the chair, Apple stated, quote, "Well, gentlemen, you are about to see a baked apple." Murderer though he was, in his last moments, Apple found time for a shockingly clever pun, and it made for some of the most memorable final words ever uttered. Number 8. Gary Evans. Between 1985 and 1997, Gary Evans murdered a total of 5 people. He confessed to the killings in 1998 while in police custody. 1 month after the confessions were officially verified, Evans was being transported over New York's Menands Bridge when he freed himself with a handcuff key he had hidden up his nose. He then broke out a window of the prison van and escaped onto the bridge. Evans, who refused to die from lethal injection, then took his own life by jumping off the bridge. While it's frustrating that a criminal didn't face legal punishment, this exciting escape sounds like something out of a movie. Number 7. Thomas J. Grasso. This man killed 2 elderly people for a pittance. The first case occurred on Christmas Eve of 1990, when he stole $130 in loose change and a TV. The second occurred the following July, when he stole a Social Security check. For his crimes, Grasso was sentenced to die at Oklahoma State Prison and requested SpaghettiOs for his last meal.
SpaghettiOs! Oh yeah!
But that is not what he received, and he was not happy. Grasso issued a statement shortly before his death, claiming, quote, "I did not get my SpaghettiOs. I got spaghetti. I want the press to know this." It's a disturbing response from a clearly unrepentant killer, regardless of whether it was meant to be funny or serious. Number 6. Jeffrey Dahmer. This serial killer is the worst of the worst, and his name has become synonymous with horrible crimes.
I think he killed so many people without being caught because of the fact that he looked like everyone else. He did what successful serial killers do. He blended.
For his actions, Dahmer was sentenced to 16 life sentences at Wisconsin's Columbia Correctional Institution. By the mid-90s, Dahmer had given up on life and reportedly told his mother he didn't care if something happened to him. And something did indeed happen to him. On November 28, 1994, Dahmer was jumped and killed by another inmate named Christopher Scarver.
To many, including Dahmer's own attorney, it comes as little surprise.
I wasn't shocked because I thought that Jeffrey Dahmer would end up this way.
According to Scarver, Dahmer didn't make a single noise as he was being attacked, which could possibly speak to his acceptance of death. Scarver later gave multiple motives for the attack, including his disgust at Dahmer's notorious crimes.
He died pretty brutally, but you can't say he didn't deserve it, but still. I think at that point it's probably a relief to him, I would think. That was no kind of life.
Number 5. Carl Panzram. The true number of Charles Carl Panzram's murder victims remains unknown. He personally claimed to have killed 21 people, and he was suspected of orchestrating over 100 deaths. He was sentenced to life at Leavenworth, but it was changed to a death sentence after he killed the laundry room foreman. Panum was shockingly unrepentant to his last moment, writing in his statement, quote, "I am not in the least bit sorry." While being hanged, Panum spat in the executioner's face and yelled, quote, "Hurry it up, you Hoosier bastard. I could kill a dozen men while you're screwing around." These were his famous last words, and they solidified the remorseless Panum in the annals of serial killer history. Number 4. Lavinia Fischer. It's extremely hard to verify the story of Lavinia Fischer, and some historians believe that she never actually killed anyone. But Lavinia and her husband John were highway robbers who purportedly killed guests inside their Charleston inn. They were eventually convicted of highway robbery and sent to prison. Lavinia was sentenced to hang and supposedly issued some of the most admittedly badass final words ever uttered. Right before her death, Lavinia yelled, quote, "If any of you have a message for the devil, tell me now, for I shall be seeing him shortly." Following this, she took her own life by jumping off the scaffold before the executioner could hang her. Number 3. James French. The story of James French is depressingly fascinating. In 1958, French killed a motorist while hitchhiking and blatantly asked the jury to sentence him to death. When they gave him life instead, French wrote to the governor and requested a new trial. This didn't work, so French killed his bunkmate. That did work, and he was finally sentenced to death. Shortly before his execution, French told a reporter, quote, "If I were covering my execution, do you know what I'd say in the newspaper headline? French fries."
French fried potatoes?
Yep, French fries.
It's yet another morbid bit of gallows humor, and it makes us question if he wanted the electric chair simply to make the joke. Number 2. John Wayne Gacy. The killer clown himself. John Wayne Gacy is one of the most infamous serial killers in American history, owing both to the extent of his crimes and his life as a children's entertainer.
Gacy was the epitome of evil, and he was the epitome of being a great guy, which gave him the ability to be the most evil guy in the world.
His execution is also the stuff of legend, cementing him as an unapologetic devil. Gacy made a final statement through his lawyer, claiming that his execution was meaningless and that killing him would not compensate his victims.
Despite problems with one of the lethal injection tubes, witnesses say Gacy took a deep breath and died a peaceful death in 18 minutes.
When asked to give his final words in the lethal injection chamber, Gacy simply responded with a curt, quote, "Kiss my ass." There were no tears shed for this clown.
John Wayne Gacy was pronounced dead at 12:58 a.m.
He got a much easier death than any of his victims. In my opinion, he got an easier death than he deserved. But the important thing is that he paid for his crimes with his life.
Number 1. Aileen Wuornos.
She's been called the damsel of death and the hooker from hell.
Between 1989 and 1990, Aileen Wuornos killed 7 men who were soliciting sex from her, and she was subsequently sentenced to death.
I'll be up in heaven while y'all rotting in hell.
The day before her execution, Wuornos gave a very famous and rambling interview to filmmaker Nick Broomfield, which some believe displayed severe mental illness. Her final words are also indicative of her mental state. Just before Wuornos was lethally injected, she claimed, quote, "Yes, I would just like to say I'm sailing with the Rock, and I'll be back, like Independence Day with Jesus. June 6, like the movie. Big mothership and all. I'll be back." It's totally nonsensical, and it all makes for some truly bizarre final moments.
Whatever's on the beyond, I think it's going to be more like Star Trek, beaming me up into a space vehicle, man. Then I move on, recolonize to another planet or whatever. But it's whatever's the beyond, I know it's going to be good because I didn't do anything as wrong as they said.